Okay, for the next part, you're going to open up the Revit file and you're going to open up, so you can double click on the file in Revit, it should also open it up. And I would also keep the example file handy so you can see, you can follow this. I might just put this on the other screen for the time being, but you're going to need to complete each one of these exercises and you're going to have to answer some of these questions. So we'll get back to this in a minute, so I'm going to minimize that. Okay, so with Revit open, okay, typically I'm just going to let Revit load because that might take some time. So once the file opens, you should see exactly what I'm seeing in my view. Please note, if your properties in your project browser are not correct, please let me know during the class so we can fix this. In the view tab at the top, sometimes these get switched off, so we're going to use project browser and we're going to use properties. We need to use these together because these two things work in tandem. Okay. Alright, so in theory, when you open up the Revit file, it should just open up like this. Alternatively, you could have just opened up Revit. So with Revit open, I could have gone to Open, Desktop, Workshop, wherever you're working, please work in a location so you don't lose this work, and I'm going to press Open. Okay, so you open this file, and you should be seeing exactly what I'm seeing. Okay, so we're going to focus on the first assignment. You'll see that we've got some questions to answer. Okay, with regards to exercise 1, we're going to draw a series of line types, etc., etc. So for the most part, this exercise and workshop is going to be a drafting exercise. I would like all of you to get comfortable drafting in Revit first before we start modeling. What you need to understand with regards to Revit, drafting and modeling go hand in hand. There are some situations that you can't model everything. You're going to have to draft some information as well. Okay, so this file is it's been set up to work straight out the bat, so there should be no issues. If there's any issues during the class, please let me know. Okay, so let's just get cracking with exercise number 1. Exercise number 1 is pretty straightforward. We need to copy a series of lines. We need to draw some line work. We need to assign the correct line type to it, and we need to copy these down so that we can measure a diagonal dimension. Okay, and these are very typical dimensions that line types that we use within a project, and I'll just like to get you used to drafting and that kind of workflow. Before we go any further, our Revit template file always comes in our starting view, always comes with a short guide of the materials that we use. Okay, there's some basic materials that we'll use just to get you started on a project, and the line weights have been pre-set up. So line weight 1, so line types or line weights 1 to 16, they've been associated or been assigned a line weight, so 0.05 typically for hatch, and you can see 1 hatch. That's why in Revit we always prefix the line work with the corresponding pen or line weight designation. So this is just a quick way to know I'm working on, and here's a quick guide to see how line weights work. Okay, dimensions, everything's in here, font styles, text styles, all of this information's here ready to work with. Okay. There's a lot of information that you can ignore for the moment. This is focused for the 3rd years, but let's just get cracking. So go back to the workshop view. You can close that starting view now. We're going to spend most of our time in this workshop view. Okay. The first thing I want you to do is go to the Annotate tab. We need to create some line work. Now typically when you're doing 2D line work, everything will be covered in the Annotation tab. So anything that's 2D related, we will focus on the Annotation tab. Architecture, all of these items won't work at all because we are busy working in a drafting view, and if I go to view, it's very easy to create a drafting view. You can simply create a drafting view from here. Remember, we work in scale 1 to 50, and you can set your detail to fine. This doesn't really matter, it's not going to affect anything for now, but just understand that we're going to be drafting to start with. Okay, so let's just go to Annotate, and remember detail line. We're going to start with our first line type. Luckily it is pre-selected, but typically you'll see that we've got a prefix of the number that we're going to use. So I'm going to use the first bit of line work as 1 hatch, and it has to be 3 meters. So start drawing. When you start drawing, you'll notice that Revit will try and snap vertically and horizontally and at certain angles. You can set these snap angles as well. I'm not going to go into too much detail at the moment. Realize that you can change this, but typically as it works out the box, I'm happy. So as you start typing, you'll see that you can end the command anywhere. But if I keep tabbing at the end of the bit of line work, it gives me this node and these blue dimensions appear. It just allows me to set the length of the line and make sure I want this to be 1 or 1 hatch. I want this to be 1 hatch. Please note that you'll need your line weights enabled for this to see the effect, so make sure that your line weights are enabled as well. Okay, so I've drawn my first line and it's 3 meters. So that's great, very straightforward. Another way you could have done this is detail line, snap from that intersection to that intersection there. Okay, when you're busy drawing in Revit, you're going to have intersections that you're going to use. So if you go to manage and you go to additional settings, you can go and change all these snap settings. So in snaps, okay, here are all the snap settings we use. So just keep everything as is. There are certain shortcuts we can use while we're doing this, but for now, just understand this is the way we need to work and how we, okay. So just pay attention, you'll need to measure that distance then, we'll get to that in a minute. Alright, so I've drawn my first line. Now pay attention to the spacing. I need to copy this bit of line work down. So when you select an object in Revit, a modified tab will appear. So any tool or any line work or any object that we use in Revit, it will have specific commands and tools associated to that line work. So, or item or family, okay. So if I select the line, you'll notice now this new tab appears with a ribbon with all these different categories, controls, modify, view, etc. We need to copy this line work down, so use the copy command, 500. Okay, so I'm going to repeat this command again. This is what I like about Revit. So I'm going to go 500 again. I'm going to hold down 500. I'm going to copy down again. So this is why drafting in Revit or starting to draft your construction drawings is going to take a lot quicker to put a drawing together, because a lot of these things you can just multiply on the fly and everything's pre-set up to work. Just note, if you don't have a good template, this is going to take a long time to get to work correctly. Okay, so I've gone and so I'm just going to use a measure tool quickly. You can double check and make sure that everything is 500 and you can see that it is. I'm happy with that. It's giving me a whole lot of information. So these lines have been copied down, okay, all 500 mil. Now, with line types, if I select the next one, I can now hold down this function and I can say furniture. Okay, remember at any point, I can go, if I use the detail command again, so if I go to annotate and I go to detail line work, and I'm just going to hover over here, it's going to give me a new starting point. You can also set this, but if I go, I'll explain. I'm going to get rid of this bit of line work. If I wanted to go to architecture, annotate, detail line work, if I wanted that new to furniture, remember you can hit 2 on your keyboard, make sure that your numlock's on, it'll jump to all the line work that's 2. So I'm going to 2 furniture, I can hover on this point and hold down, and I can simply start drawing. Now if I select this bit of line work, it'll always try and find an object close by, so I can quickly change this to 500. Remember, double click in the text to move it, and tab at the end here to make sure that this is 5 meters. Okay, sorry, 3 meters. Remember, we work in millimeters. Okay, so now that's set to 2 furniture. Great, now I'm going to go and find this bit of line work, so I could have drawn it manually, but for timber section, you'll see that the line weight's starting to get a bit thicker. Use this bit of line work. I'm going to change this to 5 masonry. Okay, so I'm just explaining you can change things very quickly to suit your needs while you're drawing and drafting. Okay, line weight 6, so concrete, remember 6 concrete. So go and find the corresponding line type or line style. Okay, 6 concrete. And now you can start seeing that you're getting a hierarchy. Now we get different line types, so it's a line pattern that's different and a color, for example. So this will be for wastewater pipes, etc. If we use them, we don't model these things in 3D because that's a wet services engineer. We draft this information for the time being. Okay, so the next one we're going to get to will be the drainage layer, and that'll be 6 drainage, and that'll be brown. Okay, so once you've gone and done this exercise, I would like you to measure the diagonal. So I've assigned a dimension style. So in the annotation tab, you're going to go to the line dimension. I'm going to pick another line for this exercise, but you'll understand. And you'll see here I've got line dimension answer. Make sure that's the active dimension. And then I'm going to press tab a couple times. So press tab on your keyboard until it selects that node. I'm going to press tab here a couple times, and you see that it'll drop in a dimension for me. Okay, so let's just do that again. I want that point. My apologies. So press tab, tab. And you're going to press tab, tab. Just remember, I'm just going to drop the dimension there. Now I'm going to use this dimension and I'm going to line it up. You don't have to line this up. I just want this rounded dimension. If you double click on the text as well, you can see that is its value, 3905. So please go and look at the answer that I'm asking you for. Please measure that distance and put in that value. So follow the workflow that I've just done to create that measurement. You can also use the measure tool, but just be careful. You can round this up or round it down. Okay, just note that you're going to get decimal points, so you might make a mistake. So use the dimension tool that I've provided. That's a good way to give me the answer. Okay, so please complete this exercise and give me the correct answer.